Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We are your hosts, Kristen and Karan. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble.
Today on our podcast, we are talking to Kyle Gray. Kyle is a story wizard. He is also an Amazon best-selling author of The Story Engine. He is the founder of Story Pro, where he teaches entrepreneurs to create impact using the power of their own stories, including Kristen and myself. He is a world traveler and the host of the Story Engine podcast. So we welcome Kyle to our show today. Welcome, Kyle.
Oh my gosh, it is such a big honor to be here. I'm so excited to be, digging into some storytelling and sharing, my own ordinary, extraordinary life and pirate lifestyle with y'all.
And something tells me that you really like stories, Kyle.
I something tells me that too. I've been honing in on that instinct a little more and more over the years, and I've been liking them more and more the more I learn about them.
Very cool. Yeah. So Kyle, Chris and I both completed your Story Pro program, which was amazing, by the way, and so helpful and impactful as a coach and as an entrepreneur. And we would love for you to tell our listeners about your own journey. So pull up a chair, Kyle, and tell us your story about how you became a pirate.
Wow. Um, it's something I've slowly been easing into for a long time. Um, I can remember there's so many little pirate moments in my life that I can remember now. I feel like I've had a really different set of values and a really different way of seeing the world from a very young age. And I've always wanted to be different. I remember being in high school and shopping for blue jeans. And I was like, these jeans are dumb. Everybody has the same jeans. They're the same color. They all look the same, except for some people like to have more holes in their jeans than others. And I was like, there's got to be a better way to do jeans. And so I buy a bleach pen and start drawing like flames and lightning bolts and all kinds of like comic book kind of cool stuff on a pair of jeans and loved them. Started walking around. I was a musician at the time, playing concerts with those jeans, and just doing everything I could to like stand out from the crowd. Um, and I've for a while I thought, maybe there's something wrong with me or there's something a little bit weird. But the more I like started to lean into that and understand that and own that and have fun with it, the more adventures happened. Going through college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, except for that I wanted to travel the world and found lots of opportunities to travel the world. And while I was doing that, I was hearing about entrepreneurs who were living in different places around the world and building businesses from their laptops and making a big impact. And that was like such a cool idea for me. But I spent a lot of time, like, I didn't give myself permission to act on that for a long time because I was like, well, I don't have any skills. I speak Spanish, but what good is that going to do in the business world? And so it took a couple of years. And as I started to piece together little projects, learned how to build websites, started helping a few clients here and there, um, I really got into storytelling when I graduated from college. And one of my first gigs was working for a startup called WP Curve. This was a this startup was run totally remotely. All of our team was spread around the world, and I actually got the opportunity to live in Thailand because my boss was living in Australia, and the time zones are very similar. But I can live in Thailand and for a very small U.S. salary, live a very nice lifestyle. Um, and so I started learning the skills of telling the story of this startup each week by creating high quality, engaging content, written content at this time. And it was really fun to do that because I felt I was tapping into a creative part of me. For a long time, I was a musician before this, and I thought the only way I was going to live a happy and fulfilled life was by being a rock star. And there was something about writing these articles that were impactful, that were helpful, that were getting seen, that kind of tapped into that as well. Started building on this skill set. I got great results with the startup, and then continued to build my own business and got to live and travel as I had dreamed. Um, and again, I remember starting to work with another company that helped people get on stages and speak from a stage, and that really like called to me as a performer. Again, I was writing a lot and I was making this similar like creative touch, but then when I saw people speaking from the stage, having experiences, sharing their stories, and making an impact just with what they were doing, I was like, I need to learn more about this. And so I started taking my writing skills and applying it to stages and speaking and really like storytelling and connecting with people in this way. And it took a couple of years, but I slowly started to master these skills and have the good fortune of working with hundreds and hundreds of different coaches, many health and wellness experts, and I have a different like health journey that we can talk about. I'll weave that story in a little later. Um, but yeah, and since then I've been able to live a lifestyle where I get to be creative. I get to integrate a lot of kind of my emotions and help people express their emotions and their value and share their stories in a way that really connects with the heart instead of so much the mind, which has been a lot of my own personal process of how I've grown and developed, especially over these last, I would say, 10 or so years, and especially in the last year, having met wonderful women like yourselves and a few other people who are doing the work to not only master the stories that we tell the world around us, but the stories that we tell ourselves.
Yeah. What is it about storytelling that inspires you, or that you've built like this career around storytelling? What is it about that you want to teach other people to do the same thing?
One of the things, again, just kind of how I think growing up, I didn't know quite how to use my emotions or express all of my emotions. Feeling sad, feeling pain, feeling anger. These things weren't really okay, and I didn't know how to do it. And I spent a lot of time stopping stopping these up. I didn't feel safe in a lot of these things. I also didn't feel safe like really shining in my own in my own self and my own radiance and in who I am. And so there was a lot of time where I spent kind of like not speaking and kind of stuffing things down. And this led to a lot of different challenges in my life. I think it like challenged how I related to people, especially if I had close romantic relationships. It definitely held me back in how successful I was in my business, because I was always was beating myself up and feeling a lot of stress and anxiety that I couldn't move through or express or feel or understand. So I would just like stuff it down. And I also yeah, you when you're in this state and you are, I also like would really default. I'm very intelligent, I'm very smart, I was very successful in school, getting the good grades, and I can learn stuff fast, and I enjoy that. And I think a lot of people that I work with are also extremely intelligent, and that is good until it's a problem. And it becomes a problem when we start fire hosing people with all of our knowledge, and instead of like trying to communicate with them in a way that meets them where they are.
Mm.
And so these are all different aspects of stories. And what I've found through both learning how to communicate a story in a way that connects with the heart and not the mind, and also in the last year, really understanding there's like I've been working in kind of marketing and sales storytelling for a long time, and over the last year, it's now close to a year and a half, I've really spent a lot of time working on how we see the world through the lens of our own stories, the stories we're telling ourselves. And especially in this last year, I've found a really magical connection between the two. And I'll share in Story Pro program, I'll share an example of what this really looks like. I have a nutritionist in the program right now. She's living on Oahu in Hawaii, and she reached out to me on a one-on-one call and she was kind of getting stressed. She was stressed about, she couldn't figure out who her ideal client was. And she was getting clients that were like women, adult women that had hormonal digestive issues, but she really wanted to work with parents with children with ADHD. And she said, Kyle, I'm having trouble with focus. I'm getting these clients in, but I want to work with these clients. And if I ignore them, then I'm not going to have any money, but I'm trying to get over here. I don't know what's going on. And then she's like, I want to work with people with ADHD, but I'm not sure even if I can, because I'm just discovering now that I have ADHD and I've had it for years. And I'm thinking about all of the bad decisions I've made in my life, these high anxiety, high energy, impulsive choices that I wasn't even aware of I was making. And she says this, if my parents had only known, they could have done something. She's stressed. So we're not going to be able to work on a script for a story yet. And so we do some inside story work, the same methods that you two are well versed in. I have her write down all of these things she's saying, and we start to work on it. Particularly the one, if my parents had only known. There's like this resentment there, um, and that parents. One of the biggest objections that a parent with a child with ADHD has is they don't want to put a label on the child. They don't want to be burdened with that. As educators, I imagine you're familiar with this. So or sometimes don't want to deal with it, or they're not sure, or maybe they just think their kid is kind of a bad kid. But and so they'll avoid looking into this. So we start working with her story. If my parents had only known, and we change it to, if I had only known, I could have done something, which changes the feeling, brings her, she starts to feel a little less stressed. Oh yeah, I could have, that puts it back on me. And then we switch it to, I know now I can do something. She's feeling better. And now she's like, I know now, and I know why this is so valuable to be addressed with kids. Okay, so we change it around. She's feeling better, and we start writing this story. And I ask her if she knows anybody in her family that may have it, and she starts to mention her grandson. So we start to watch the story of her watching her grandson and her son. And so the grandson's being hyperactive, bouncing off the walls. The son's yelling at him, being like, "What are you doing? Chill out." And she's watching this happen. And she's looking at her grandson, and then looking in her story, we revisit all of the things that she just dumped on me when she was all stressed out. She's looking back on decades of her life, only now realizing that she had spent so much time in an ADHD state, and all of the mistakes that she made. And she sees her grandson going down this same road, or not being served, not being taken care of. Her father, or his father, is not like is just kind of doing the way that most parents do it. And she like just feels this horror and this stress, like looking at her grandson and seeing the same path for him. And then she has that same line, if my parents had only known, they could have done something. And that is the line, just this dirty, not a nice thought to be having, and not a helpful thought, unless you put it in this story and use it to overcome the biggest objection that your listeners would have. And so it's so magical to be able to take the thing that's stressing you out, that's a roadblock in your own life, and weave it into something that you can share from the stage in a strong way that will get people to lean in and be like, wow, there's nobody that has ever described it like that. And I need to work with you.
That's really cool. uh, so with that, which yeah, that's a really great story because as an educator, I'll go to the side of like I don't like labeling, and I work with younger kids, so I'm like 5-year-olds are needing to be labeled, and seeing also though the value in oh, when you can look at it from the other side though, there are different steps that you may take. So it's cool that you're working with people to help them see that as well, so that they can serve the people around them. Kyle, what does it mean to you to be a pirate?
Mm. I think it's been able to just make my own choices and direct my life the way I want. And I haven't always given myself room to do that. For example, like, uh, you know, about a little more than a year or a little less than a year ago, I left a relationship that I was in for a really long time, or not that long, a year and a half or so at that point. But we had gone deep fast. And my girlfriend had bought a house. I moved in with her, and I wasn't very happy in this relationship. I just wasn't being fulfilled, wasn't living the life the way I wanted. But I stayed in it because it felt like the right thing. We had a nice house in Salt Lake. It was kind of the white picket fence dream. I lived close to some of my friends, and it felt like what I should be doing. And that just doesn't work when you're just trying to when you're trying to live life. I was trying to fit in with like what a lot of people do, which is just kind of this American dream kind of timeline or thing. And it simply wasn't working for me, and so I had to, or I left and started living life again the way I wanted to. Um, and one of the things that came from that shortly thereafter is I ended up taking a vacation to the Big Island of Hawaii, and I was expecting to be there for about 5 days and be home by Thanksgiving. And that trip got extended through the weekend past Thanksgiving, and then another little bit longer. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I'm going to stay through the end of December. Oh, I'm going to stay through January. I found a new place, and okay, I've got to go back for February, but then I'm coming back. And being able to make the choice, which I've like constructed my life in a really specific way where I don't have a lot of possessions. I don't have a lot of things. And it makes me sad sometimes. I would love to have a nice house filled with stuff. I would love to have a comfortable place that was my own. And I get afraid sometimes because wherever I am, I feel like the housing prices are going up so fast that it may be unattainable to, get what I want. And at the same time, I live with a flexibility and and a mobility that very few people can have. Very few people can accidentally move to the Big Island and be able to like continue to work and operate. And it's come from having a very different set of values of mobility and flexibility, of investing in my business over investing in a new car or a new house, and really understanding what my needs are and acknowledging and being okay with me being different, because it really is, it's hard to be or feel different and not always be understood. And it's amazing when you find community like you two and many of our other friends that give you space and allow that to be. And I think through finding people that really understood me a lot better, I was able to open those doors up more and more. And so, what being a pirate means to me is like, captaining your life with your style and doing it unapologetically.
Yeah, I mean the word that keeps coming up to my brain while you're talking is freedom, right? Just having that freedom of mobility, of working, of living where you want to live, of traveling where you want to travel, and freedom is a huge aspect of piracy, right? I mean, the pirates came from the Royal Navy where they were not free, they weren't paid, they were what's it called when they the press gangs would force them into servitude, right? And then taking that freedom and the skill of what they learned, but working for themselves and serving themselves. And that's really what being a pirate is about, right? About taking that freedom and that self, I don't want to say self-serving, but also self-serving.
Mhm.
I think it is. It's like it's okay to, be self-serving, and so many ways. It's okay to take care of yourself, to give yourself what you need, and to have that. And I don't think many of us give ourselves that permission to do so. And so, yeah, it's like making your choices and standing in them, and being proud of who you are.
Mhm.
Totally. And when we look at pirates, we look at the whole concept of social rebellion, right? And that's what the golden age of piracy was all about, the social rebellion. And what I want to know from you, or what we want to know from you, Kyle, is what is that social rebellion that you're looking to start, or have you started with the work that you do?
That's a great question. Everybody knows about the environmental resources crisis happening right now. You may agree with it, you may not, but I know that you know about it. And that's climate change, that's all kinds of different things around that. I believe that there is a similar crisis happening, but I call it the human resources crisis. And I heard about this from a guy named Ken Robinson, a good author, and he has a good TED talk on this. Um, and what that is, or what I see that as, is like there are Einsteins, there are Malalas, there are heroes among us that have not really. There's Einsteins out there that haven't been writing down equations and have been working as a notary or in a box factory. I can't remember what shitty job he had before he was a genius. And Malala didn't have a job, but she just wanted to go to school. Um, but So I believe that there's people out there that haven't stepped into these roles. And what would we have missed out on if Einstein would have played it safe? What would we have missed out on? If some of these brilliant people didn't tap into who they really were. And so I see that as happening right now. And one of the reasons I say, and one of the social change that I would like to see, is that I feel that modernity and just the way, particularly in the West, but this is all over the planet, um, the modernity has really brought us a lot of comfort and ease and efficiency, and in a lot of ways. And I feel we almost many people feel that it is unequivocally good, the progress of technology, and and I would say that it's kind of made us soft, or we become too adapted and too comfortable, and we would rather. And I think a lot of the ways that the messaging in our society and who we are encourages us to consume things that aren't good for us, in terms of food, in terms of information, in terms of things. And they're not optimized to make people better or happier or healthier. They're optimized to get more clicks, to get more sales. And there's been a lot of technology building around this. And so what I would say is that I would want people to tap more into their genius, which also requires them to be able to sit with and live with some degree of discomfort, and move through that, and to enjoy or appreciate, or at least have a taste of the discomfort, and knowing that there's something better on the other side. Because if we just want to have a cocktail every night and watch the Real Housewives of whatever, and just be comfortable and kind of get through every day, it adds up to a lot of disease. It adds up to an unhappy life. It adds up to these kind of things. And so by being open to understanding your discomfort, to lean into it, and to enjoy it and use it as a tool to grow yourself and to understand yourself, um, that's that's the revolution that I'm looking for.
It, we were actually having a conversation earlier today too about boredom. People are not leaning into boredom or allowing themselves to be bored. And in that, chasing the social media highs and that little notification dot saying, hey, you've got another message. Do you feel like that is ringing true along with what you're saying? Like people have good ways of distracting themselves right now, so they're not getting
Yeah,
creative.
me too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a victim of that. I'm there. I've already felt an urge to check my phone since this interview has started. I'm sure you have too. Yeah. So
Totally.
I've got that, and I've got my own, like, I would say all these things. I probably smoke a little bit too much weed, and I play, a little, or I can really binge on a video game every once in a while. So I'm right there with you all. I'm figuring out my own stuff. Um, and being okay with that too, and of where we are, and like accepting yourself where you are, not just being like, oh man, I'm a shitty person, that's not going to get you anywhere, but like seeing where you are, accepting it, and then yeah, making progress to move forward towards it. I think a lot of us, unless you're an entrepreneur, unless you're a coach, a lot of us grow up, we go through school and our whole day's scheduled. College, we have to pick our schedule a little bit, but like all the choices are made for us. You go to your job, all the choices made for you. Bosses tell you what you need to do, so on, so on. And so when we're not used to like making a lot of choices for ourselves, we don't really work that muscle. And so I think, we get out of school, we have our job, and then when we get home and nobody's telling us to do anything, we don't do anything, because we've never worked the muscle of being like, I could create something, and or I could do something. And so I think just building in a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, or having a project that you can work on, that's your own, that you schedule time for, that you make your own, and living in a creative way, not in a passive way, is so essential right now.
How would you recommend somebody start exercising that muscle? Because it's a muscle to exercise.
Yeah, I think there's lots of good ways to do that. Back to social media, I would actually say creating on social media and having a real message for who you want to do, not just like, here's me and my matcha latte today, or whatever. Do love a good matcha latte, but having a message and sharing something, or making stuff that you're proud of, or taking developing a skill or a hobby, having guitar lessons, or learning how to paint, anything like that you can just be a little bit creative, that it's your mind making stuff, or that if you want to go further and like and start making some kind of project or a side hustle, getting everybody, we're in an unprecedented time where becoming an entrepreneur and being able to reach whoever you want to reach online, never been easier. And so many people are coming forward to this, so like there is definitely something to having some kind of product or something that you offer, and being able to like sell it to somebody. And I think just going through that process, it's challenging. It'll bring up all of the stuff about your own value and who you are, but from just like it doesn't have to be that expensive, it doesn't have to be much, but if you have something to sell and you try to start selling it and offering it to people, then this will work that muscle big time.
Yeah, definitely. I like what you said about, finding a creative outlet. And I remember having a conversation with a client, and she wanted to do something really creative and create something artistic. And I remember her complaining to me about, I want to do this creative thing, but my daughter, all she wants me to do is color with her. And I was like, are, are you not seeing the connection here? I'm like, does it have to be a masterpiece, or can your creative expression not start with, sitting down with your 5-year-old and coloring pictures together? Because I think sometimes we get caught up in the fact that if we're creating something or we're making something, then it has to be this perfect, grandiose thing, rather than being able to start small. And we talk a lot about small, bold actions on this podcast, but starting small and taking actions and sitting down for an hour and coloring with your 5-year-old, and understanding that that is part of the creative process, that is being creative, and sharing that moment with your child is magical, right?
It's magical. And I think one of the worst things about being an adult is that cognitive dissonance. When you were a kid and you had piano lessons, and yeah, it kind of sucked, but you just like, you didn't think you sucked. You were like, oh, this is kind of a pain, but I'll learn my scales, and you would do it. But now all of a sudden, when we're trying to learn a new skill now at this age, we're like, oh my gosh, I've seen like amazing painters and guitar players and whatever, doing all their stuff. And so I suffered a lot from this. For when I was 22, again, this was like near the end of me like thinking that I was going to be a rock star. And I actually got really sad. I used to be like phenomenal at playing guitar. I was really good at electric guitar. And I started putting so much pressure on myself to like write great songs that I actually just burned myself out on it. And only recently, by doing exactly what you suggested, I remember last summer sitting in on a back porch and just thinking like, well, what if I just let this inner critic go? Instead of trying to write great songs, I just had fun writing songs, and started writing some music that actually helped with my speaking and presenting and storytelling, and having fun with it. And it became like a new creative outlet for me. I started enjoying it again. They weren't amazing like guitar-y dweedly do kind of things. They were really simple, but they were fun, they were charming, they were creative, they were different. And yeah, it even helped me build some new relationships. I've got a left-hand guitar in Oregon now,
Mm-hmm.
thanks to Kristen and Lance, because of just letting go of this pressure. I'm starting to play again and using it in a new format to help people. It didn't have to be a genius like Spotify ready song or whatever you see, like those badass people on YouTube doing their loop pedals and like making all this crazy stuff happen. It was just simple me singing with a guitar. And so letting that pressure off, allowed so much more creativity, so much more growth to happen. And by just, yeah, opening up.
Which that left-handed guitar is still waiting to be played. So I'm right-handed over here. uh, so we were talking about those small, bold actions. What small, bold actions have you taken?
One of the small, this isn't a small bold action. This is a big bold action. But I'll tell you, there's been a really big shift that's happened for me, especially in the last 2 months. Um, and this is really involved with sales. I've been entrepreneuring 5-6 years now, and I've had some really big contracts and I've had some really small contracts. And for a long time, up until very recently, I would hop on a call and you'd get somebody enrolled or excited to work with you, and then they'd be like, okay, I'm ready to go, what are the next steps? And I would say, well, that's great, I'll send you an invoice to your email and then we can get started. And that's all well and good, sending people an invoice to email. But or even if somebody was like, well, that sounds really exciting, but they didn't necessarily ask, how do I get started? I would just let their objections happen, and I would just kind of let it slide unless they really asked to work with me. um, and so I missed out on a lot of clients retrospectively. And so in the last couple of months, I've had some really good sales coaching, and a lot of people have been encouraging me, you need to get their credit card on the phone. So when you get somebody enrolled and you're like, okay, I'll take your credit card payment right now. That was kind of a scary thing to ask for at first. And when you do that and you're like, okay, you can pay me right now, that's when people will start to tell you the real truth. And they'll either be like, well, I can't pay you right now because of blah, blah, blah. And that's the real objection that is keeping them from this. And so for a long time, I, wanted to be a people pleaser, or wanted to, yeah, wanted to just not be rejected in that way, and so I wasn't reaching out and making it happen. And now I lean in, I say, hey, I'm ready to take the credit card, and I'm enjoying this moment of like the tension that happens in this. And really, this is actually a coaching moment, just like what all of us are doing when somebody shows up and is stressed and is in a story. This is also the moment where the story comes into play, and you've got to stand up for them and believe in them. And that's through sales. You're not being greedy, you're not being pushy. You are holding a vision for this person of a better life that you can provide for them. And if and it's bad coaching if you're going to let them stay in that story and that state that they're in right now. But if I'm afraid to lean into that and to expose myself to possible rejection because I'm like want to be a people pleaser, then I'm losing out on clients. My clients are not being as well served, and yeah, and so the small bold action for me has been just this little moment in conversation. And when I know it's time to make an offer, I'm going to make my offer, and I'm going to stand in my own value fully and completely, and get people on board that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sales hadn't been a part of my life before becoming an entrepreneur, and getting to work through my stories about sales and what I thought being a salesperson meant was hugely impactful in being comfortable. But it started with that discomfort, like you were talking about, really leaning into that discomfort of asking people for money, asking for what I'm worth, or what my product is worth, and really working on those sales stories. So, did you have a sales story, a specific story that you had to work through in order to be more comfortable?
Mm, yes. So, not too long ago, I was putting on an online summit. Am I the only one? And sorry, this is a little tangent, but I think other people have bird sounds. Hopefully, I think several of us are hearing little bird noises. I think that's beautiful, but I'm glad, because I'm usually the only one that's bringing the birds to this.
Maybe me.
Well, yeah. I hope the audience is enjoying our birds. Nice. So over the last 5 or 6 months, I was working really hard on an online summit. I had over 35 speakers and had around 1,400 attendees in February to this online summit. And this was a tremendous amount of work. We were talking about how many interviews you would do in a day, and doing interviews became my full-time job. And I love the work. It's challenging, and I love it. And I had was expecting to use this summit to fill up a Story Pro program and return to Hawaii with a nice stack of money. And I was really looking forward to that nice stack of money, because I was deferring a lot of clients and drumming up new clients because I was working so hard on this summit. And so by the time I was getting close to, like, I had run up some big bills at this time, getting ready for the summit to happen. And so I ran like my final workshop at the end of the summit, where I invited people into Story Pro, and that was the day before I had departed for Hawaii. Landed on Hawaii, realized I had gotten 0 sales. And that first week, I was just in a dark place. I was beating myself up. I felt like a dummy for coming to this island, and a place where I'm going to be spending all this money that I don't even have. I'm going to run out of money and be living in a van down by the river, or whatever the case may be. And I was really beating myself up over a lot of this. And a friend of mine recommended a book to me, which was surprisingly useful. She said, you need to read the adult children of alcoholics manual or handbook. And she's like, yeah, I know you, or I didn't have parents with substance abuse issues or anything like that, but I did know, like, in kind of my family's history, some of my grandfathers on each side possibly did, or at least had some trauma in their history, and these kind of things can echo throughout the generations. And so even if you didn't have a family or a parent with substance abuse issues, a lot of these behavioral patterns that they talk about do show up. And this is being a people pleaser. It's being afraid of authority. It's being, it's giving away your power and all of these things. And I open up this book and I start reading what it's called, the laundry list of these behaviors that these people will do. And I was like, oh man, I'm so many of these things. And so I started to see this voice that I was beating myself up with. I started to shift it from, this is my own voice, I'm not good enough, to, oh my gosh, this is the echoes of generations of pain. And now I have the opportunity to fix this. And when I let that pressure off, then I was able to hear other stories. And I was hearing from my coaches, like, get them on, or like follow up with everybody that attended the workshop on the summit. Just follow up and get them on the phone and talk to them then, and then try and close them on there. And so I started to do that. And I hadn't like followed up in this way before, because I hadn't either like believed it was value enough, or I was blocking myself. I was hopping on calls and people were like, I loved the summit, I loved the workshop, I just wasn't sure if I was going to get enough one-on-one time with you. I'd be like, you absolutely will. We're going to have a one-on-one call, and, I'll throw in an extra one for you if you want, but I'll need your credit card right now. And ended up filling up the Story Pro workshop, ended up bringing on a couple of new high-end clients. And it was through letting go of this story around sales, or this fear, or this rejection, and letting go of this story around being addicted to this anxiety that I had been experiencing through it. And so it's certainly still a work in progress, and I'm fortunate to be surrounded with good coaches and good people that, I'm charging some of the highest prices for my coaching I ever have, and they're still encouraging me to think bigger and look further down the line. And it's only by removing the stories of this of what I'm actually worth, or that are lowering what I think I'm worth, to really tap into the fullest version of me. And I think at the same time, conversely, there's always been a fear, like, I've known I've been different, and I've had a fear of like shining really brightly, of like posting a lot on social media, because I would be afraid, like, maybe my friends would be like, oh, he's just trying to sell stuff or talk about himself now, he's no longer cool, or something like that, or just like sharing who I am and my successes and my wins. I was afraid that people were going to be mean or reject that, and now I'm less afraid of that, and I'm just working on shining and sharing me. And every time I make a post, the world proves me, or proves that story wrong over and over, because so many people reach out and they're like, thank you for sharing and saying what you were doing. But I hadn't given myself permission. I hadn't seen my own value, or gave myself the way to stand in that.
That leads me to a really good quote by the pirate Calico Jack, which goes, "A story is true, a story is untrue. As time extends, it matters less and less. The stories we want to believe, these are the ones that survive." So, like what you're saying, like the ones that you're choosing to believe are the ones that are going to survive. With that, you can keep listening to the generational stories, or you can tell yourself new ones. And yeah, I really like how you are all about telling stories and helping people change their stories and create epic stories as well. So, with that, what would you recommend our listeners do to start their own pirate life and take small, bold actions?
I would say I would say set a goal. I think very few people, again, going back to like a lot of us are used to our lives being scheduled and decided for us for the most part, or for a major part. And so set a goal for something, set a business goal or a personal goal, and something, maybe you want to run a half marathon. Maybe you want to, pick up guitar and learn how to play a certain song. Maybe you do want to finally get your coaching business off the ground. But any kind of goal and start to pursue that for yourself, and start to break that down, and start to captain your life. And yeah, with just these small starts of being directed and being interested, and do something that's going to make you feel a little uncomfortable, that's going to make you, it's going to force you into some friction, so that you can grow and develop from that and become a better person.
Yeah, I like goal setting is something that I use a lot in my coaching. And having even done goal setting workshops, and it really can spark someone into taking action, especially if you act upon it immediately. And it doesn't have to be something big. Again, it can be that small, bold action, right? If you want to learn to play guitar, well, that's when you get to, the first thing to do is research where you can get lessons from, right? Or, maybe you can need to rent a guitar to use. So taking those small little actions really take something from being a preference to actually being a decision. Like, I would really prefer to learn the guitar, but I'm not going to do anything about it. It's not a decision yet until you take that meaningful action. And it doesn't have to be something big. So all about action taking and goal setting.
Taking that first step.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Kyle, where can our listeners go to find out more about you?
I have I'm posting and sharing a lot on social media, particularly on Instagram and Facebook. And you can find me at Hey Kyle Gray on Instagram, Gray. And you can also learn more about me, check out my podcast, check out my books, and learn more about the Story Pro program at thestoryengineco/pro. And one good first step, if you want to learn more about storytelling and presenting and sharing, if you're getting on social media, if you're speaking more, and want to, if you have a business of some kind and want to attract more customers with speaking, I have a really nice guide I've created called the 5 Brutally Honest Storytelling Mistakes That Are Killing Your Sales and Presentations at thestoryengineco/honest. It's a great first step to improve your speaking.
And Karan and I both did Story Pro. We highly recommend it. We've learned a lot from Kyle. So yeah, if you're looking to take the next steps in your business and create an epic story, definitely check that out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Kyle, on our first day of interview recordings for these podcasts. We're really excited to have you as one of our first guests. Being a coach, someone that's made an impact on both Kristen and I's life. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you being here today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I want to commend both of you for starting this and for sharing your voice and your vision. And creating a podcast like this is a big endeavor in the first part, but it creates so many opportunities for good conversations, for meeting new people, and it's really one of the most beautiful and powerful tools you can make for your business. So I want to commend both of you for taking these courageous actions. This podcast is an act in that.
Thank you.
And well, before we go, we do have a question for you. Do you know any good pirate jokes?
Or terrible pirate jokes?
Yeah.
We also accept those.
And if not, we have one.
Okay. I have an octopus joke.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, it's kind of ocean themed. How many tickles does it take to make an octopus laugh?
I know this one. 10 tickles.
10 tickles. All right.
Well, with that, you want to hear the joke we prepared for you?
Yes.
What's orange and sounds like a parrot?
carrot.
Yeah.
You got it.
That's a pirate joke? Where's the pirate? I guess there is a
Maybe
Parrot?
there's a parrot.
carrot.
It was a Kyle pirate joke.
Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, well, that brings one more thing to mind because I've just seen like so just being on the island, I just see these like flock of seagulls. They kind of have this V formation as they're flying. And since this is kind of a seafaring thing, so I've seen this, I've noticed this. I've been watching more birds on the island since it's really pretty. But do you know why sometimes like the V, like one can be really long and one wing can be much shorter? Do you know why that happens sometimes?
No.
Well, one side has more birds.
Dad joke.
And with that,
Thanks for this
awesome, Kyle. It's
conversation.
been so much fun talking to you. And yeah, thank you again for being on.
Thanks for having
Your
me. This
terrible
was
dad
wonderful.
jokes.